Greetings from India. My name is Rajiv Vasudevan. Delighted to be here with you as you go through a panorama of speakers who are going to talk about different perspectives on Ayurveda management of COVID. I would like to emphasize the potentiality of stepping up Ayurveda into what we would call precision Ayurveda. And this journey over the next 30 minutes will cover the definition of what we mean by precision, how does it relate to quality standards and continuous quality improvement, the COVID disease itself, right? What about it? How does it impact Ayurveda? And the concept of evidence-based Ayurveda, all of this converging into two cases where we actually reflect upon the application of these principles and leading to a conclusion. So when you look at precision, the simple definition, as you can see at the bottom of your screen, is the quality condition or fact of being exact and accurate. The diagram in the middle actually shows you how one person is able to display different types of behavior. In the first circle here, you're seeing a dispersed target shooting where on an average he's in the middle, but he's not converging to a particular point. And on the other end, on the extreme right, you can see something which is both accurate and precise. Let me clarify. When we use the word precise, we mean accurate and precise. And what we mean by that will come to is how do we ensure this on a repetitive basis, reliable basis? And that is by ensuring that we make it person independent, role dependent, which means irrespective of which doctor is doing it, still they should come to the same conclusion. And what is the reason for this? It is to ensure that we maximize the probability of positive health outcomes. So in this context, we must understand there are two parts. One is safety, do no harm, even if you can't do good. And the other part is to deliver improvement in the health status, right? So both these things come to play. Only with a quality systems driven approach can we look at Ayurveda scaling up beyond a single doctor or a single institution. So going from a quality approach, we're talking about quality systems, which is the totality of people, resources, processes, technology, and the organization structure, and finally the culture which binds all of them together in the provision of the medical and non-medical care. So an organization actually has to be viewed as a quality system, and the players or the stakeholders in the quality system will be doing certain repeated tasks or repeatable tasks as part of the Chikitsa provision. So is it standardized? Otherwise, what happens is over a period of time, which is 20 days, 21 days, 15 days, 1 month, the plan of care is one thing and what is delivered is something else. So we don't get precision when you measure the outcomes because you quite don't know where was the problem. Was the problem in my diagnosis? Was it in my planning or was it in the execution? And we have to understand we treat patients. This is a high risk, high impact field of endeavor. And therefore, there has to be continuous quality improvement, which means there is a feedback loop which ensures that we set out certain objectives. And with respect to those objectives, we understand where did we deliver or not deliver. And if there is a gap from those metrics, we figure out how to improve and actually demonstrate that. So you need the outcomes because Ayurveda is out to prove to the world that we are a safe medical science. And therefore, we cannot just totally ignore the fact that unlike modern medicine, where outcomes measurement is done only in the clinical research, but actually at a hospital level, it is not as demanding as what we need to do. So this is very important that we think in terms of a hat, we put on the quality hat in everything that we do. And another dimension of quality and precision and establishing that Ayurveda works or does not work, right? Either way, is to understand that correlation between two things does not mean there is a causation, which means I treat a person and I claim that it is my treatment which caused the benefit, right? Or the failure, or the adverse event. In any of these cases, to systematically establish that it is not on account of or some stray, fortunate incident that the patient got the benefit, but instead it is my scientific approach. So if you look at the data, it is self-explanatory from WHO that you have a pear-shaped distribution of people who are actually contracting the virus here. And if you look at where is the fatality, you'll see it's almost significantly in the higher age groups, which means that the youngsters up to 40, 50 are not really having much fatality. It's only the rare occasion, right? And similarly, if you look at the data here from NEJM, you can realize that 19% only progress to critical illness, severe illness, and another 21% get dyspnea. The rest of the group only get very mild constitutional symptoms or virtually no symptoms. So this is the important part to keep in mind, that establish causation. And in this context, we need to understand that we are talking about multiple doctors seeing one patient should lead to one Chikitsa, Siddhanta, and Chikitsa Paddhati, right? On the other hand, if you have one doctor treating multiple patients, then he should be able to come to a personalized Chikitsa, Siddhanta, and Paddhati for every patient or every group of patients who comply with a certain definition, right? What is the definition? We'll understand as we go along. So for every group of patients who are homogeneous, I should be able to come with a particular uniform Chikitsa, Siddhanta, and Paddhati. That is what we are telling here on the right-hand side. Is this possible? And we have to understand that COVID, when it comes into the body and when it goes into the complicated stage, it is a virtual blitz. It's like a bombarding of the body, right? And it attacks multiple systems, multiple organs, and some people are more prone to get the disease. But modern medicine tells this particular aspect. There are many more factors which are clearly to be counted, included in determining how a person would potentially respond. And we have to understand that there are already 8 identified nCoV-2 virus strains which are present, and many more may develop. So we have to look at the fact that this is just a complete superset of all the symptoms and signs which people are displaying. But there could be much more that would be happening. We are not still understood completely, but this is the bare data. And we have to understand that, as I told earlier, that this particular determination of who goes to stage 2, stage 3, there is no stratification methodology which allows us to tell who will go to that. And therefore, if you look at the COVID care life cycle, the questions that will come to me are, who out of the people who have still not contracted the virus, if they were to contract the virus, who would go to stage 2, stage 3, and who would remain at asymptomatic or mild moderate? And can I do something in advance so that in the event I were to contract the virus, I would still be not progressing? Number 2, if I have contracted the virus, how do we do secondary prevention, which is to prevent it from going to an acute emergency care, to the stage 2, stage 3, right? And the final part is tertiary prevention, is how do we restore positive health and how do we prevent recurrence, right? So currently there is no systematic answer from Ayurveda. Modern medicine is doing certain things. We'll go to what they try to do, etc. But fundamentally, Ayurveda, there is a selection of medicine, selection of activities, but very precisely is it there? And therefore, we look at the concept of immunity, right? Which is what is the opening gateway to prevent something from, to close the gateway so that things don't progress. And from a modern medicine angle, when you look at innate immunity, they are talking about the first line and the second line of defense. And you can see here, these things in terms of the external protection, the skin, the mucous membranes and secretions, which prevent the virus from progressing into the body, right? On the other hand, the next level, which is basically the immune cells which come up, inflammation creates an environment which is a positive inflammation, which will create an environment which is hostile to the virus, and typically antimicrobial substances which create that anti-immune response. But as can be seen here, modern medicine clearly says innate immune system is broadly specific. That is, it is non-specific. So the concept of anatomical barriers like PPE, social distancing, etc., which reduces that, all of this is not given, is only, that is the limit of what is being done. Ayurveda offers something beyond these non-specific, as we'll understand. And to understand that, we also need to keep in mind that the National Clinical Management Protocol published by the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare is today giving us a very clear 7-stage evolving framework of severity, right? Can these stages be mapped to the Ayurveda knowledge framework from asymptomatic to septic shock? So the modern medicine pathogenesis, we can see here 2 diagrams. On the left, you see from early stage to severe stage. In the early stage, we have basically lung restricted activity happening here primarily. Then the virus is transported through the capillary blood vessels across the body, when you're going to see a variety of biological and physiological activity happening, biochemical, biological, physiological activity happening, which is the intense attack and the inflammation, severe inflammation happening post an initial cytokine storm, right? So this is all that is there. But please understand, this does not posit a view about what could happen, why it would happen. This is a generalized one-size-fits-all picture. We are going beyond that and to look at how we can predict something. Similarly, on the right-hand side, there is this concept of pathogenesis and the host immunopathology. That means, how is it actually the host responding to the whole situation? And we see this scenario again similar to the diagram on the left-hand side, how the initial disease progresses to ARDS, leading to this level of hyperinflammation, which then leads to a dysregulated inflammation, which is spreading all throughout the body, right? So in this context, how does modern medicine approach the treatment? It takes a certain rationale, which is fairly reductionist, to say the least, where they've looked at drugs which have a certain in vitro activity, take that and try it out, whether it will work across the board, right? It is not stage, it is stage specific to some extent, as my earlier diagram did show. I had shown a diagram in which at different stages, different medicines are used. But uniformly, they're strong, very potent medicines which are not specific. And a few people are getting benefits, but there is no assuredness that these medicines work at all, right? And most of them are very much experimental. And the vaccine scenario, as we know, is still far away. On the other hand, we have some recent studies. I'm showing you here a study which has been done quite well. It is a botanical study where the individual ingredients, right, the ligands coming from the medicines that have been used in the Ministry of Ayush prophylaxis protocol have been characterized and been evaluated with respect to how effective they are in terms of their action against the medicines that are being potentially against the virus itself, right? But the study is very good. But from an Ayurveda perspective, it is incomplete, imprecise, and really not relevant, right? Anything that comes out of this is still going to be misleading the world and us in terms of what Ayurveda can potentially do. When you do an Ayurveda research, this data would be useful from Ayurveda perspective, but this in itself is not going to be creating any great advantage for Ayurveda practitioners or the sector per se. So as we come here, now let's look at the concept of evidence-based Ayurveda, right? So evidence-based Ayurveda is, in simple terms, we would say the body of clinical practice that over millennia has been proven to be effective and which is exemplified in the simple words of the simple 4-stage principle of Pratyaksha, Anumana, Aptopadesha, Yukti, or Aptopadesha, Pratyaksha, Anumana, Yukti, right? So how do I go through a process of collecting the proper data, right? Inferring from that in the context of a predefined knowledge framework. And into this, of course, we need to factor in modern medicine insights, the diagnostic inputs, etc., to make a composite whole picture of the disease. So when we look at evidence-based diagnosis, typically are talking in terms of taking the Pradhana Vedana, going to the presenting complaints, the history of the presenting complaints, the past medical history, family medical history, the Vayaktika Vrittanta, that is the routine for the day with diet, lifestyle in detail, then going to the Ashtasana, Dashavidha Parikshas, and then going to the Rogi Bala assessment, Srota Pariksha, leading to, in turn, Nidana Panchaka. I'll show you an example, Nidana Panchaka, leading to a personalized medical management plan. But before I get to the personalized medical plan, there is this very formal process of arriving at the differential diagnosis and then coming to the diagnosis, right, of one Vyadhi or multiple Vyadhis at the whole person level. For a given set of Vyadhis, there is a treatment objective, which we'll understand whether it is Shamana or Shanti. How do we come up with a medical management plan, which is basically the Chikitsa Siddhanta and the Chikitsa Paddhati, right? Can we do this systematically? We'll come to that. And for a given Paddhati, how do we ensure over a long period the provision of care is completely documented, systematic, and there is no or minimal variation in the standard operating procedures which apply in the provision of care. And throughout the care, right from entry till exit, we need to be looking at clinical outcomes, right? What are these clinical outcomes we need to measure? And I keep safety separately from outcomes because it's very important to understand that safety is of paramount importance. So we need to track adverse events, adverse drug events, and other events. So looking at, in coming to the Chikitsa, there are specific Ayurveda considerations, which is that basically these are agantuka in nature, right? And as the reference says, such agents quickly progress from Rasa Rakta Mamsa Meda Asti Majja Shukra. So the Sannipata stage is achieved rather rapidly. So there is not much time in terms of a typical Nija Roga, that it goes slowly, progressively. We have to be very precise in how we act. Otherwise, the patient might actually proceed to a more dangerous stage because we didn't do the work properly. You have to also understand that the National Clinical Management Protocol enjoins people to take medicines at different stages, right? Both as prophylaxis and in treatment. And Ayurveda needs to understand that we are going in either at the level of pure prevention, which is primary prevention, he's not taking any medicines, and we are going in there, or we are going to mitigation. Mitigation typically is when I've contracted the virus, and we have to ensure that we are giving it as an add-on therapy, in which case the cross-drug interaction has to be seen. And the management is where we define it as standalone management, where we have to come in, the drug-drug interaction may not be so much an issue, but we need to, of course, look between the drugs that he's already on in Ayurveda and the new drugs we are going to add. And rehabilitation, which again, at that stage, he may be having the residual effects of the earlier management, and he may also be on some lifetime medication. We have to look at DDI even at that stage. So we can't ignore something and just say Ayurveda has no side effects and just go all out and give these medicines. When you look at comorbidities, no patient is going to come and say, I am COVID, right? I have multiple other Vedanas. I have specific diagnoses that I carry. How does my treatment act upon them? And the basics of Ayurveda, there is a Roga Bala and a Rogi Bala, right? And this way to treat the Desha, and the Desha itself is going to have an impact on both these factors. You'll see other factors too. And going beyond the allopathy style symptom alleviation approach, right, where Ayurveda medicines are also just treating the symptom, right, and it works because in any case, the disease is often self-limited. So how do we go beyond an accidental, coincidental outcome that we get to where we say, I'm building Vyadhi Chamatvam for this Vyadhi specifically? We'll understand Vyadhi Chamatvam. And the fact that there's virus strains, 8 strains, there is a host, different strains will impact the host differently. So it cannot be, it has to be precise. We have to look at data in the context of whatever is published. If we come to know this is a particular strain prevalent in India, it is something else prevalent in the US. And when we give a course of care, we have to understand that this is ahara, vihara, aushadha, and do it yourself at home, because much of care is self-done, self-managed, based on the Vaidya's prescription at home. So it is important to keep this in mind. And as we can see, the Prajnaparadha, we're not getting into the larger talk of Prajnaparadha. We're talking in terms of the not complying with the basic personal protection, wearing the mask, ensuring social distancing, hand washing, those basics which have to be done. By not doing that, I am committing prajnaparadha, right? Similarly, the vihara, I may be doing the wrong things, the mityahara vihara, the vichara, right? Unnecessary, I already am in stress, I keep on adding further to the garbage I accumulate in my brain. So that is prajnaparadha. So I should not do that. The patient should not do that. How do we bring that into the plan of care? General immunity versus specific immunity, I've told there, samprapti vighatan, right? And there is more than one roga, so I may have to tackle it together. We'll see a case there. And the treatment principles fundamentally, right? We are bringing in a broad spectrum approach, which is rakshognam, shrotashodhanam, rasayanam, amapachanam, and agni samrakshanam, right? These principles, more or less, the timing sequencing will change depending on the rogi roga avastha. So when you look at vyadhi chamatvam, the non-specific inherent vyadhi chamatvam is, or the sahaja bala, is coming from, when you say the deha bala, agni bala, sattva bala, this originally by birth or by prakriti I have it, and I can't change it. It is inherent to me, right? And therefore we know that a kabha prakriti, somebody with samhanana and sarvasara kaya, is somebody who's likely to have more sahaja bala, right? The other part is somebody with a different prakriti is still in swasthya because he maintains it through proper ahara vihara, right? And the impact of desha and kala in terms of the varying of the varying nature of the doshas in those seasons, right? And kala is time of day, time of season, time of digestion, and time of life. And when you look at the fact that if I'm looking at vyadhi chamatvam at a non-specific level, we can give non-specific rasayanas like Chavanprash, but we have to keep in mind whether the Agni underlying can digest it and whether it has an impact on comorbidities. But the larger role that Ayurveda has to play is in terms of specific Vyadhi Chamatvam, where we reduce the Vikritis, remove the Vikritis, reverse the Dusha Samurchana by clearing the Srota Rodhas, right? This is something that we are specifically doing. So it's a risk reversal and it's a disease reversal in the process, or disease prevention mitigation. All of that is happening. And we administer specific rasayanas rather than general rasayanas, depending on which srotas, what type of problem has been impacted there. Outcome measurement, Ayurveda has tremendous scope to improve. AyurVAID over the last 15 years has demonstrated in its clinical practice at its hospitals a very, very mature, rigorous system of patient outcome measurement, which you can see here, and which we believe is world-class, not just Ayurveda class or India class. It is a world-class system comparable to the best medical institutions in the world. This is possible for every Ayurveda doctor and institution to do if they really are interested. And these outcomes should inform and impact the way we manage from the first time I meet the patient through the cycle of care, lifetime, because that's where we are able to show that what we have hypothesized in terms of the disease progression, right? And the impact of our Chikitsa, all of that is happening. That is why then it becomes a Shastra and not just some Nadi Pariksha or some hocus pocus which is done. And accidentally, placebo effect also works. But in the process, we do injustice to Ayurveda. The biomarkers in the context of COVID have been well defined. I've left out the reference here. I will share that separately, but I would like you to note, this cannot be done for everybody totally, right? In total, all these things will become very expensive and unnecessary. So a good Vaidya would look at which biomarkers are relevant for the Chikitsas Paddhati and Siddhanta that I'm following. What is the nature of the Roga Samprapti? Which are the Srotasas? What is the nature of the Dosha Samurchana and the Vikritis, which I need to reverse and measure before and after, right? So this is, we need to keep in mind. And the drug-drug interaction, very easy tools available. Whatever medicines you administer, know the ingredients, go and check. In case a person is already on some other medicines, is there a cross reaction? And therefore, with respect to the standard of care in Ayurveda, vis-a-vis the standard of care from modern medicine, we have tried to put together this table, which talks about, is there an agonist-antagonist action between the Ayurveda medicine and the allopathy medicines? What are the possible adverse reactions? And this is listed here. And independently, therefore, who are the people, because of this adverse reaction, who is excluded from the administration of these medicines we are given. And finally, for the Ayurveda standalone intervention itself, where is it contraindicated, right? We began with this prophylaxis in the month of Shishira. We are now getting into Sharad Ritu, still the same prescription is being given. That can be quite dangerous. Similarly, there are pregnant women should not be taking even the very safe medicines. So there are so on and so forth, very specific issues which we need to keep in mind before we prescribe Ayurveda medicines. And looking at the Ayurveda Samprapti, how it evolves from asymptomatic to septic shock, a framework very clearly can be developed. We won't have time to go into the specifics of this because there is going to be a lot of discussion on different people and their perspectives on this. Suffice it to say that with references, one should be able to really bring out what we have brought out here, and we have done the homework very thoroughly, we can tell you that. So based on the information available. So this is something that we are tackling in terms of the which doshas, what has happened to the Agni, which dhatus, Ama is there, has it become, is it only in the Koshta or is it gone into the dhatus itself, which rotas, what is impacted, right? Going on to the marmas itself and ojas. So the Sapta dhatus, till where does it go into impacting? So when we look at bringing this all together, we're talking about clarity of treatment objectives, whether Shamana or Shanti, right? And when I say Roga Shanti, we're talking about Roga Samprapti Vikatan, right? So what is the objective in Samprapti Vikatan should be very clear, right? What is the nature, which shrotas, what is the dosha, ama, agni, all of this, the dhatu, dosha, dusha, all of this should be very formally determined. And for a place and time, based on the Samprapti and the Samprapti physiology, the impact which is there at a whole person level, we need to look in terms of what is Siddhanta for the place and time and the Paddhati, which is derived therefore, right? This can be done very systematically. So Shuddha Chikitsa would ensure there is minimum recurrence, no new diseases are caused, it does not aggravate comorbidities, and it does not create side effects. That's a Shuddha Chikitsa. So today, who is measuring it? We should measure it. And the fact that treatment always would look at Nidana Parivarjana, right? So the whole thing in terms of the ahara, vihara, and the aushadha, the manasika, the nidana arthakara. So the agantuka, manasika, nidana arthakara. How do we ensure that we don't aggravate the standard, the pancha nidanas, and the appropriate ahara vihara, and the fact that the paschat karma is also kept in mind, so that apart from the main preparatory and the pradhana karma, the purva pradhana, paschat karma should be kept in mind, so that we don't do this independent of each other. So therefore, we get to the fact, we look at a COVID patient and a rehabilitation case. As can be seen here, this is a diabetic who came to us on 19th of August 2020. There's already a samprapti for the diabetes, which further led to, when the person contracted the virus, there was a certain samprapti which further evolved. And the patient comes to us at a time when SpO2 is 92, and if that person had gone to an allopathy hospital, highly stressed, the Manoha Srotas can be seen. So there is a existing level of inflammation, and the person is going towards dysregulated inflammation, right? And that's where there is a very systematic approach to ahara vihara, the manasika, and then the shrota shodhana at a mind level is being done, and the rakshogna medicines being given. So the entire approach which has been taken there has been so effective that just in 5 days, you can see from 17th August to 22nd August, all the clear symptoms, myalgia, the temperature, SpO2 from 92 to 97, all the other parameters of Ayurveda, Nidra, Agni, Mala, Mutra, Manas, Ojas, Indriyas, right? The clarity there and the state of well-being, you can see there is a clear improvement which is happening from 0 to 5 to 4 out of 5. So the important point here, the state of mind from 2 out of 5 to 4 out of 5, right? There is a significant improvement on all parameters that's happening. And when you look at rehabilitation, this framework gives us a very good approach to how Ayurveda should approach this whole thing. Not only look in terms of physical impairment, but look at cognitive and the mental health status of the patient and the mental health status of the family. And if you look at this recent study from JAMA, it gives us a clear understanding of which are those symptoms from COVID phase which persist into the post-COVID phase, and how we can characterize that in terms of COVID rehabilitation samprapti, right? We also need to take into account the effects of conventional drugs which have been consumed earlier, right? So, and maybe also consumed now when the person comes to a rehabilitation stage. So we cannot just do something and say Ayurveda one size fits all. It's got to be done systematically for every person in a stage. So look at this person who was COVID positive in July, turned COVID negative on August 7th, comes to us because aggravation of Bell's palsy. Fairly severe symptoms, 10 out of 10, 8 out of 10, 6 out of 10, 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10, right? Severe symptoms, formal clinical pariksha is done, Ashtasthana, Dashavidha. On the right hand side, you can see. And you can see the Srota pariksha, which is done here, right? Very systematic, leading to the Rogi Bala is also determined here. And with all of this, we go to the Nidana Panchaka, leading to a Samprapti Ghataka and the layout of the Roga Samprapti tree, going from Nidana, right, to the Lakshanas. Very clearly, there is a framework done. This diagram, you may agree, not agree, dissect it, but there is something to agree or disagree with, right? Based on everything here, one can audit, one can check and tell, I put one word here because of what I've seen in the parikshas, what I've done in the history taking. All of that is done very systematically, right? And that leads to a Chikitsa Siddhanta, as I told here, Agni Deepanam, Amapachanam, Mridu Shodhanam or proper Shodhanam, Rakshognam, leading to a overall treatment plan. But initially medicines were given. Just with the medicines, you can see here, through telemedicine over phone, we have determined the pain, myalgia has gone, difficulty in blinking, ringing, all of that has, the difficulty in blinking has gone from 10 out of 10 to 6, ringing in ears from 10 to 2, and pain from 6 to 2. So there has been reduction even without a Shodhana Karma, right? But overall, the person feels much better, I mean, from where he was. Now he would come for Kriya Karma. So we come to the last couple of slides, the fact that when you look at precision Ayurveda, we're looking at achieving Samprapti Vikhatan, both at the local Sthanika level and a systemic whole person level, wherein 3 doctors seeing one patient will come to one Roga Samprapti, leading to one Chikitsa Siddhanta and Chikitsa Paddhati. Chikitsa Paddhati for that patient at a given place at a given time. Similarly, if you look at one doctor seeing 3 groups of patients, each group having a uniform Samprapti group, for that, again, there's a Chikitsa Siddhanta and Paddhati. This is broadly the principle. There will be some changes depending on comorbidities and so on. But for a given category of people, it would be the same Chikitsa Siddhanta and Paddhati, which is why we therefore need to ensure intake standardization. Atharapatrika should be standardized. We should be clear about the treatment objectives, Shamana or Shanti. Inclusion, exclusion criteria should be very clear. In-process standardization in terms of, for a given group, what Ahara Vihara, what Aushadas, what Kriya Krama. The Manas part, each individual is different. We'll have to work with them to ensure that Manashanti, that there is a calmness in the mind. Outcome metrics should include Ayurveda parameters, both the Roga parameters and the Swasthya parameters, the modern medicine biomarkers, standard outcome scales, Samyak Lakshana charts according to Chikitsa Paddhati. Safety parameters should be very strictly monitored, including DDIs, drug-to-drug interaction. So we come to the point, also the point that when we do something, quote the references, use classical formulations, don't take recourse to patent medicines as far as possible. It's unnecessary. You'll find that even the simple, humble, the least expensive classical medicines are the most effective in totality. Let's not play with the science which is time tested. And we should choose the appropriate medicine for a given CSMCP, and we should refer global medical research as relevant, because without quoting, we can't be insulated from that. AyurVAID has developed this entire framework over 15 years, for which we have received global and national recognition, which is very credible. As you can see here, these are highly credible recognitions which have come to us and which the entire AyurVAID team has worked for. And we have to do the same kind of uniform care at all our centers from Cochin till the Himalayas. And 4 out of our 7 hospitals are NABH accredited. The 5th one is about to complete, and 6th one is the first one to get the JCI accreditation. So AyurVAID has pioneered and led this transformation of Ayurveda into a more and more precision Ayurveda system of medicine. I would like to especially acknowledge my colleagues, Dr. Jankana Butch and Dr. Rakesh Nair, both senior physicians. Dr. Jankana in particular has really been very, very contributory to the AyurVAID style of thinking, but many other incredible resilient colleagues at AyurVAID practice this system day in, day out, and have helped for this system to mature into a more and more robust practice of Chikitsa. Finally, I would conclude by sharing my coordinates, and I would request you to contact me offline or on the panel discussion for any other clarification that you might require. Namaste and stay safe, stay well. Thank you very much, Council for Ayurveda Research, and all the decision makers at Council for Ayurveda Research. Thank you.